When you're developing your costumes, and let's say you're new to the craft, is there a way to effectively manage your costs? I mean, or is it just going to be an expensive vocation to enter into?
Suck it up.
Always, like for instance, Joann's always has coupons, and a lot of times places will take competitor coupons. So you can buy fabric for cheap. I use a lot of Goodwill shopping, especially for leather. So I'll go to Goodwill and buy like a leather jacket, and it's already worn and weathered, and it's like 12 bucks. Also, I'll go to, if for superhero stuff, I'll go to Walmart and I'll buy like extra large like sports shirts, because it has that really cool textures and stuff that sometimes you can't find at Joann's, and that's like $15 maybe, and you can get probably about a yard and a half, not maybe of a full piece, but if you're using it for panels. Buy old shoes, you can strip them and dye them with new life.
Not me, my favorite too.
New Life's best.
I have, but the thing is, wigs are going to be expensive, accessories are always going to be expensive. It's an investment, but like literally, if you can't afford the costume, don't do.
Pay your bills first.
Yeah, be an adult, pay your rent, pay your car
pay that
payment.
mortgage.
Yeah.
But just save up. Like there's so many cons right there. There's no rush.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's not a race.
Do one thing right instead of like 5 maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need more passion, more time and investment in it. And for me though, I don't that's mine up there. I don't really budget. No.
Yeah,
no. I was like, do you want to eat, or can I buy like these 3 wigs? Is that okay?
So you cannot save money on wigs.
No. So, but as long as it helps to draft everything out, make a list, a checklist. Like, okay, what does this need? And look things up. Like, I'm an online shopper because I don't have time to go out, so I buy everything online. And I go, okay, this is this much. Okay, this is this much. Oh, this one's having a sale. Shit, buy it now. You know, so.
And then you regret it.
Sometimes. Or like you buy something and then they go, hey, just kidding, it's out of stock.
The worst is don't, if you're going to buy online, and I'm sure she can vouch for this, if you're buying like a wig or something from China, buy it like 3 months in advance. Because that will take about a month and a half to come in, and most likely it will be the wrong size, or color, or shape.
Yeah, they don't make them in 60s.
Not even right.
Yeah.
It does not have, yeah, be aware of that.
Margie, is your experience similar?
You know, I love shopping at Goodwill. When I was really young, we never really had, instead of going school shopping, my mom would be like, here's some money, go get some things that are, fairly nicely worn. So I shop a lot at Goodwill, and a lot of times I'll see stuff that I'm like, oh my gosh, that is like totally part of a Wonder Woman costume, or it's totally part of this costume. If I need boots, there's no reason to go buy new boots online to cover them with spandex. There's no reason to do that. So you just go and you find some gently worn boots that someone's like, oh, this didn't quite fit me, I'm going to donate it. Go to the rich neighborhoods though. If you go to the thrift store, go to the rich neighborhoods and you're like, oh my gosh, that leather jacket for $6, I'm totally getting like 5 of them if they have it, So a lot of it is seeing something that, and honestly, so much of costuming is being able to see something, seeing potential in something that other people don't see potential in. Because you can make a good costume out of so many different materials. Like, this is the way that I make a Wonder Woman costume, but it's not necessarily the only way to make a good Wonder Woman costume. You might see gold leather somewhere and say, oh wow, I can shape that into something really interesting. There are always like 100 different interpretations of how you can make that costume and translate it into real life, because the only way people have seen this is on a page. So when you're out and looking around, whether you're at a fabric store, whether you're at a secondhand store, whether you're at Walmart, wherever you are, just look at something and say, oh, okay, that's how I start costumes a lot of times, is I find one piece of something, I'm like, oh, that's the perfect katana material. I'm gonna get like a whole bunch of it. So that's really, you just have to recognize, and it doesn't matter where you are, you just have to recognize potential in things and, be able to, spot that as a costume maker.
Mark, speaking for the guys that don't have these types of skills for costume making and sewing.
Yes, I have no skills.
Me neither. Is there hope for us to be able to control our costs at all?
I advise you to not listen to any of these people. Don't buy food, just buy costumes. No. Obviously, yeah, sure restraint. I'll admit, I've dropped a fair bit of money on costumes. know, I consider it a little gift to myself, and I don't spend money on other things. So that's it'll just be budget for it, I guess.
So I wanted to walk through a couple of pieces, just to sort of, not necessarily an interactive tour of anything, but both Riddle and Kevin have provided us with some examples of some of their pieces, the more challenging pieces that they've worked on in the past. So I was hoping maybe I could get them to walk through one of their accessories and one of their pieces of armor, just to get an example of some more difficult stuff that you might find yourself working on in the future, and maybe you might get a tip for later. I'm going to start ladies first, and I'm going to bring up this particular accessory is a bow.
Oh, dang.
That is and
I put the words on there so I can just read it because it's so involved. No, it's fine. No, it's fine. So this character has a bow. I just didn't bring it down because I didn't want to have to deal with it in the crowds. But it's basically the first thing you should do, and I always say with props, and he briefly mentioned it, is create a paper template. So what I did is I took the model of the character and I took a picture of myself and I scaled the bow to the same size as the character. So basically, in my head it made sense. But basically, you just want to scale it. So like for instance, if you, so I had the picture of myself, and then I put the character beside me, and then I saw how big the bow needed to be beside me, and then I drew it out, I printed out a big piece of paper, put all the pieces together. It's an insanely large bow. It's like 4 feet, probably 3.5. And so basically what I did is I took foam, I'm going to make this really short because it's an incredibly long process. Took foam, covered the foam, sealed the foam so that the rubber would not get into the material, because if you have a porous material when you're molding, the rubber or silicone will grip on, and then you can kiss that mold goodbye, and you can kiss the original inside goodbye. So what I did, there's a specific molding technique called a matrix mold, and basically you create outward in. So rather than taking your thing, covering this, and then covering that in another mold, is this a little too complex? Sorry, my friend's calling me to cancel her costume for tomorrow. Surprise! Yeah, basically you work outward in. So it's the biggest thing when it comes to prop making is you want to plan the whole thing out before you even start, because we had to take into account, okay, I wanted the bow to be translucent and I wanted the bow to light up, but I didn't want to lock the LEDs into the bow. So when I molded the bow, I had to embed an acrylic rod in it that I could use KY jelly and lube up the lights and string them through the bow. And basically the bow is activated by these leads on my fingers. So there's a battery pack in here, because there's nowhere on that bow I can put batteries. That wouldn't be completely apparent. So you have to sort of think of everything. And then you also have to think, what are you casting in? Because some things, with silicone, you don't need mold release, and sometimes mold release can leave a residue on certain casting materials. So you've got to be like, okay, I want to cast into the resin, so I've got to mold in silicone, so then I have to use a specific type of clay. So you work from end to the beginning, and that, when you do props, is probably the best thing to do. Now, the other is Worbla. I don't use Worbla because I was originally taught clay, mold, cast, and besides time, it's actually the only expensive part is the molding part, because clay is cheap and reusable, and most casting materials, unless you're getting into the clear stuff, is relatively inexpensive. Plus, if something goes wrong, you have a mold that you can make more of, or if you need to make duplicates of something, it's great. Yeah, I mean, it can be daunting. Just work backwards, break it down. There's nothing wrong with Worbla. I think Worbla is a fantastic material. In fact, you could make something in Worbla, add clay on it, because Worbla does have some limitations when it comes to certain contours, and then you can mold that. So if you're like, man, I want to make a mask, but I want to make it clear, but I'm really uncomfortable getting a nice, clean finish with clay. That is the only problem with Worbla, is you're either going to have to cover it and sand it, because it's got a very specific, it's got a very telling texture that Wonderflex used to have. And yeah, I mean everything. The Worbla too, the problem with Worbla is it's heat-based. So even if you sandwich a piece of craft foam between two pieces, if you leave it in your car, it'll work.
Now you come here.
Yeah, or you sweat, like your body heat will cause it to work. So yeah, but what you can do is you can say like, oh, I made this awesome breastplate. I'm gonna take a mold of that, and then you cast it in clear resin. So you can, that's the thing, you can utilize a bunch of techniques. Hey, I learned how to use Worbla, and now I'm gonna mold it. Ta-da!
I wanted to also ask, since you're already speaking, and I wanted to bring attention to Margie as well. You both have these wonderful charitable organizations that you work with, and Kevin, you can speak to this too. So I'm curious if you could tell me more about the organization. I know we talked a little bit about it towards the beginning, but your involvement and some of the great things you've gotten to do with these organizations.
Well, my organization is Cosplay for Cause, and I started it when the tsunami hit Japan, because Japan was such a huge influence on cosplay, and me getting into cosplay, and basically everyone was important in my life I've met because of cosplay. I really wanted to do something to give back, and then I contacted cosplayers all over the world. I've developed a calendar, and then since then I've donated to Aurora Rise, the Philippine Red Cross, the American Red Cross, and currently working on a project that's superheroes with animals, men and women, and all the proceeds are going to the Wildlife Conservation Society. Now, everyone works volunteer, but what it is I'll approach a cosplayer, and I'll be like, hey, would you be willing to do this photo? And they'll do the photo, basically allow me to produce a calendar, but I kind of do everything. Like, I'll do the website and Facebook and the Twitter and talk to the graphic designer and deal with herding the cats that are the cosplayers in the calendar. But it's really rewarding to be able to kind of like give back. And it's a little self-serving because I can't help everybody, and I wish I could, but like, for instance, animals are incredibly important to me, so I felt like, well, I'm gonna do something with animals. So, I don't know how to make it glamorous.
Margie?
You know, I think that everyone, whatever you do in charity work, you get involved for a very personal reason, that you're personally motivated. For me, my nephew was in a drowning accident when he was 4. For 12 years he was in a vegetative state, and then he passed away. And then I know that so many people came to help our family and be there to support them. And we had costumers, who came into the hospitals for him. And I really remember that it was just nice to have people that